if Arsenal are able to splash out and sign a world-class striker in January, can they win the league?
Well, it's an excellent question because obviously, as James was also noting out, that, you know, sometimes when you don't have the right striker, and I don't want to give any disrespect to Eddie Nketiah or Gabriel Jesus for that reason, but even Gabriel Jesus said it a few weeks ago, how he doesn't even see himself as a natural goal scorer. I think that that can sometimes be a hindrance. Look, this game today, MD, was actually a great euphemism for what Arsenal are. Great at the beginning of the season. They show you so much promise. And then somewhere in the middle, they allow, with all due respect to Wolves, the weaker opponent to come back in, and then they give it all away. Of course, they didn't give it all away today, and there's many great things to take away from this victory. The most important thing, that they're still top of the table by 4 points, albeit temporarily, and they retain that lead. But to answer your question, I just really believe fundamentally, just me, my opinion, that you need three key components in a starting 11 to really win the title, aside from the fact that if you're Manchester City. One is you need a really good leader at the back. Two, you need a strong midfielder that can really dominate as well. They have two out of the three. Up front, they need a clinical goal scorer. And when you look at the goal scoring statistics, there's not one single Arsenal player in the top 10 in the day. I didn't get you, I believe, is the one with the highest with 5 goals in the league. So I would put all my focus on trying to get a proven goal scorer, not to mention the fact that they're in European competition in the Champions League. So God forbid an injury happens to their already existing personnel. Then what happens? Yes, you need a striker. I don't know whether it's Victor Osimhen, whether it's Ivan Toney. You need somebody up there that can give you 20 goals a season.
Talking about game management, James, because this isn't a fixture that Arsenal look back on at the end of the season with any great memories. They were cruising in the game, and I thought they started really well. And what they've kind of done with the arrival of Declan Rice is they've kind of got two players into one. You don't need a Jorginho and a Thomas Partey. You've got one. So therefore, in essence, you've got 5 attackers, because you've got Odegaard on one side, albeit he's playing deeper. You've got Trossard on the other side of him, and then the 3 in attack, which is great and can lead to goals. But is there enough protection there, if that was the side that he was to select, Mikel Arteta, against better teams? Would they be able to pick them off, especially with Arsenal playing with Zinchenko as an attacking fullback?
Well, I mean, what you're asking there is essentially the debate about the second number 8 position, because that's the one that's not really nailed down. I think if everybody's available, I think everybody can pretty much pick this team. The front 3, obviously, Saka, Martinelli, Jesus, Rice at the base of that midfield, Odegaard as captain as one of the 8, and then it's a question of who is the other 8 to complete that attacking lineup. And I was quite surprised actually that he went with Trossard again. We were talking about it with one of my colleagues earlier. I didn't think Trossard really worked in that position when they tried it before, and Havertz is obviously on a little bit of a run at the moment. He scored a couple of important goals in the last week. You felt as though this was a good opportunity for him to kind of build on that sense of momentum today, and yet he started on the bench, and Trossard was picked at that second number 8. Look, I think in the bigger games, particularly away from home, it is an almighty ask for someone like Declan Rice to go and handle that on his own. But you've got to think again about how Mikel Arteta is trying to evolve this team. He wants them not necessarily to be a blueprint, a carbon copy of Manchester City, but he wants them to be able to impose themselves in any venue against any team. And to do that, he wants more ball players in the middle of the park. So he would rather instinctively go with a more attack-minded number 8, who's good on the ball, intelligent in possession, and can dominate teams that way, rather than go for more of a Partey, say, who's a bit more of a physical presence, who's still got good distribution, Partey, but is a little bit more defensive minded and would sit a little bit more and give a bit more protection. Look, I mean, I think in these games at home, again, a lot of talk about it already this season, the pattern of these games now, because of the respect that a lot of the opponents come to the Emirates and show Arsenal, is usually set. You know you're going to be playing probably 11 men in front of you, the low block, and can you break them down? And that is an issue that Arsenal have struggled to tackle. And yet we're sitting here in a game where they scored twice early on, played some really good stuff for 45 minutes. You're thinking it's a matter of time that they'll go on and kill the game off. And yet the sting in the tail while it didn't quite cost them any points, it will, I think, make Arteta pause for thought a little bit, that they have still got some work to do in that area.
Yeah, Luis Miguel, how far off is Mikel Arteta from having the team that he wants, from having the performances that he wants? How far is he away from having his perfect team?
If this was a speeding train, Arsenal are and Arsenal are like the thief with all the money running away from the bank. They've got both hands on the train and they've got one foot just jumping on. They just need one more lift to get them going, whether it's like that, you know, hobo inside that can just push them in, or they get that extra strength. Like, that's how close they are. They were very close last season. But again, because this is a marathon and not a sprint, that's where the weaknesses came in. Declan Rice, I talked to Mikel Arteta this past summer about the importance of somebody like Declan Rice here, who can be essentially, we have heard this before, it's not a shocker to say that he can be in the same theme that Patrick Vieira would do back in the day for Arsenal. He could do the same thing here. So yeah, that's a great piece. But we've talked about a number 8. We've talked about a clinical striker. They just need that extra push, Andy, because against Manchester City, you have to be perfect. And guess what? This is the tightest race in the top 4 since the 2015-2016 season when Leicester City won it. So it just shows how competitive everybody else around them are. So they're nearly there, but now it's the extra baggage that everybody else is also really pushing.
Finally, James, it's Luton in midweek for Arsenal. Got some decent games coming up. Villa away will be tough. Brighton, I think, is in there as well. However, already through in the Champions League. Finally, to you, is the squad as is strong enough to compete Champions League, FA Cup, and Premier League?
No, not to win those competitions. They're not far away. I think they still have a bit of an issue at left back. I think losing Yuri and Timber was a massive blow for them. You know, Zinchenko would not be playing anywhere near as much football as he is at the moment. And, you know, he's very, very good going forward. And we started this conversation, Mark, quite rightly, about, you know, how he steps into midfield. And that is a key component of the way they play. And he's very, very good at that. But defensively, he's a little bit suspect. And look, I don't want to lay this on Jesus and Nketiah as individuals, but and it's a harsh comparison, but if we are comparing them to Manchester City, which is the team that they're chasing in probably all of those 3 competitions, really, Erling Haaland and Julian Alvarez versus Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah, there is a clear gap in quality between those 2 pairs. And yet, if you look around the rest of the teams, you know, you look at centre-back, they're comparable. You look at Rodri versus Declan Rice. I mean, Rodri's a fantastic player, but again, comparable, particularly the way Rice is playing at the moment. You look in the wide areas, Saka on his day, as good as anybody. Martinelli, I thought, was really, really good in the first half again. Look, all these players have still got something to prove against the Manchester City side that's won, 5 titles in 6 years. But there's not a lot of difference in terms of individual quality in a lot of those positions. I just think in front of goal, you know, you would want Haaland and Alvarez over Jesus and Nketiah every single time. And I think if they are looking in January, I think it is Ivan Toney who is the one that they want. Whether they can get him out of Brentford, whether they've got the money, frankly, to do a deal at that level, I don't know. They are also looking to upgrade in midfield. They're thinking about Douglas Luiz at Aston Villa. He's the primary midfield candidate there. I don't think they can do both of those deals in January. And I would say that the one that, you know, they need with more urgency is Toney as a centre forward. I think if they got in a striker who they knew could give them 15, 20 goals, maybe more. I mean, Toney in a better team than Brentford, obviously a very good side. You would expect him to be pushing 20 plus over the course of a whole season. I think if you're looking at upgrading in that area, then you start to think they are very, very serious contenders. They are already, but that's the big doubt for me. It's still that gap at the top end of the pitch that's the clearest distinction, I think, between Manchester City and Arsenal.
James, Luis Miguel, thank you. Arsenal needed that 3rd goal to get to cruise control, but they did get 3 points. And for today, that's all that matters.